as the Madlanga Commission edges closer to its preliminary report that President Cyril Ramaphosa is expecting by the 17th of December 2025. The crucial probe circled back to the events surrounding the December 2024 Operation Takedown of alleged cartel member, that is Katiso Molefe, and the movements of the political killings task team dockets in evidence that seemingly peeled back the layers on Lt-General Shadrack Sibiya's quote-unquote hasty directive on the dockets by the unit that was, according to Sibiya, investigating him. I'm Canny Maphanga, and this is the Madlanga Wrap.
Received a telephone call from our former national head, General Lebeya, who recently retired. On this call, he inquired whether I was aware of any Hawks operation underway in Sandhurst, in Johannesburg. General Lebeya instructed me to verify whether any of our units were conducting such an operation in Sandhurst, and then he WhatsApped me the specific address, which was 137 Empire Place in Sandhurst. When I received this instruction and speaking to him, I literally understood it to mean that I should send our members to go and specifically verify if there are Hawks members operating on that particular address.
The Commission, tasked with probing allegations of criminality, political interference and corruption in the criminal justice system, kicked off last week's hearings with further evidence on the Hawks' alleged interference in the Operation Takedown of alleged cartel member Katiso Molefe. The Commission has already heard and seen evidence which suggests that Molefe had some form of alleged ties with high-ranking police officials, and that this alleged interference was merely a means to shield Molefe under the guise that there was alleged bogus Hawks officials at Molefe's residence. However, more Hawks officials who were intimately involved in these events have come forward to distance themselves from the allegations.
I have heard evidence presented before this commission that members of the Hawks were interfering with the arrest operation of Mr. Katiso Molefe on the 6th of December 2024. I am not aware of these allegations of interference until I heard the evidence presented by witnesses before this commission. I personally had no intention to interfere in any legitimate police operation. My understanding is that the Gauteng Hawks who attended the scene on my instruction to Colonel Serfontein were not the first Hawks members, and that is also presented in that message of EAK1, to arrive and did not stay on the scene for more than 10 minutes. So the members of Johannesburg serious organized crime, from my understanding, they remained for a brief period at this particular scene. I do not have details of what the team did when they arrived on the scene, other than what is contained in the feedback message. Having regard to the contents of the feedback WhatsApp message, I do not consider this to have been interference, especially given that the team indicated they were there only for 10 minutes.
You may continue to paragraph 8.
In hindsight, regarding the instructions that I gave to Colonel Serfontein, I should have taken it upon myself to ask General Lebeya for more information regarding his instructions to verify. However, when I receive an instruction from the national head, I normally accept his bona fides as my superior, and that the instruction being given has a legitimate purpose.
Major General Kadwa was not alone in this assertion. However, the officials still could not find a tangible explanation behind their presence at that residence that lasted up to an hour, as well as their inquiries on elements of the operation that went far beyond the scope of the so-called verification request.
So you saw that immediately when you got there. Now, what entitled you to a reference number and a case number in relation to the J51? Once you know that these are the police and you can see that your Tom's colleagues are there, You fulfilled your mission because your mission was to go there and check if there are people impersonating the Hawks. Once you got there and you see that they are legitimate Tom's people, they are legitimate SABC people, that's what you were sent there to do. And that's all you needed to report back on. I don't understand why you needed the J51 reference number or the case number for the operation, because that borders on interference.
Yes, Commissioners, can I just explain why I needed the reference number? The reason why I needed the reference number is to report back to my superiors as to, like, normally what happens, I have to report back using a reference as to we engaged with the investigators there, and they were engaged with this operation using this case number or this inquiry number. It was for our own reference as well.
But you are interrupting what they are doing, because if you are saying they must now stop and attend to you and give you details of the operation, you are interrupting what they are doing. That's my problem.
Commissioners, we were not interrupting with them because they came to us.
These tales that run contrary to the intelligence evidence that these events were merely an attempt by the Hawks to interfere under the guise of a verification request raised further questions on the dynamics between the South African Police Services, that is the SABC, and the Hawks. This as the teams were seemingly working at cross purposes in an event that could have ultimately led to a shootout if things went the wrong way, prompting the question of whether there are simmering tensions between the two units. A proposition Major General Kadwa could not outright deny.
Is there some tension that you are aware of between the Hawks and the SABC or the task teams that were executing the operation in Sandhurst?
Let me talk about myself first. I think the way we operate, because we are very much about collaboration, it is very important that we are not transactional. It is very important that we maintain very strategic partnerships in dealing with people. From myself, I think I normally enjoy quite I'd rather say, courteous relationship with my counterparts and able to get ourselves moving forward in doing things. But to answer your question, I think it would be a big lie if I told you that there was no kind of simmering tensions in certain quarters.
In addition, a character by the name of Malcolm X was also placed at the Sandhurst scene of the December 2024 Operation Takedown of Molefe through the evidence of Hawks official, Warrant Officer Paul Radebe. Malcolm X is the individual who reportedly took the credit of being the person that allegedly phoned retired Hawks head General Lebeya about the so-called bogus cops, which subsequently activated the verification request instruction by Lebeya to more than one unit in the Hawks.
You see that guy there, he pointed from the three gentlemen that were standing behind the Mercedes-Benz. He pointed the guy that was wearing a cap, spectacles, and a backpack. He pointed to that man and saying, you see that idiot is busy taking videos of us and he's taking pictures. He's talking to someone on the phone, telling that person that we said we are from the Hawks office. Then I looked. When I looked at the person he was pointing at, I recognized that man. I know that man to be Malcolm X.
The exercise of circling back to the Hawks' alleged interference evidence added more layers to the December 2024 events that garnered a lot of interest. However, it still leaves a significant element out: the evidence of who would have been the Hawks head at the time, that is retired General Lebeya. As the 17th of December deadline draws closer, the Commission is yet to draw the curtains on such crucial evidence which could determine whether the Hawks were simply making a verification request or if they are allegedly compromised and were deliberately attempting to shield an alleged cartel member from arrest. This, as the person fingered to have made the verification instruction is yet to place their version before the Commission. The Hawks and their alleged interference in the arrest of Molefe was not the only evidence that was rehashed before the probe. The movement of the 121 PKTT dockets came back into focus, and this time the Commission learned more information about Lt-General Shadrack Sibiya that could explain the alleged quote-unquote hasty and immediate approach towards the disbandment and the directive to move the dockets to the headquarters. All that and more after the break. Thank you for staying with us on Connecting the Dots. Further evidence on the movement of the PKTT dockets from KZN to the Pretoria headquarters has revealed that it allegedly may have not been for the purposes of quote-unquote auditing, as that function is not performed at head office, and that there was no real plan for the dockets once they moved from their original home, that is KZN, amid ongoing investigations, prompting more questions about the true rationale behind the movement of the dockets. Was it to allegedly stall investigations? Was it to allegedly gain insight into what the probes were about? This, as evidence from the vantage point of Lieutenant General Hilda Sintumele, paints a picture of a Lieutenant General Shadrack Sibiya who was allegedly paranoid that the unit was insisting in probing him.
General Sibiya was adamant that actual General Khumalo shouldn't be heading the PKTT. It's a detective matter, which I differ because it's a combat matter, and therefore the dockets must come to me. He was adamant through inquiries, through like asking to say how far are we, but further, he was preoccupied with the notion that General Khumalo and crime intelligence were investigating him, and I remember him saying in Zulu, I think I do have a message to this effect where he said CI is investigating him, and I'm not sure whether this is correct, commissioners. I'm a Christian, and I'm not perfect, But if somebody is facing a situation, my first response would be scripture. So I would be responding to motivate him, because at the time I didn't know, to say no, but be strong, this will come to pass,
General, before you
Okay.
move, I think I understand what Bayangi Gijimisa. Oh, yeah, but
Yeah.
for the rest of us, can you explain what that means?
Can I start with a joke, Commissioner? So Abafana Baka Khumalo also include Commissioner Khumalo. No, it basically means that General Khumalo's people are chasing me.
Thank you, General. And then just to demonstrate this point, can you please turn to HKS 6, which is at page 21 of the annexures? And can you take the commissioners through that exchange?
Okay. In support of my assessment, Commissioner, I actually go back to a clip that General Sibiya sent me of General Mkwanazi, where he said that Khumalo is assisted by the PKTT to investigate me. And I think he sent it to me in the evening. So I said, "Good evening, General. I can't open the clip. Can you please send?" And then I asked, "Gauteng CI you mean?" Because he just said Gauteng. So Gauteng for me, I'm thinking General Khumalo wouldn't be responsible for Gauteng investigations, and I'm thinking it could then be Gauteng CI.
And then his response on the following page?
Yeah, no, he says then both Gauteng CI and Khumalo, but they can only help themselves. They clearly don't know me. And I proceed to say, "Good morning, my DNC. It's not a great feeling to be chased for no reason. I've been there, I know. God again, we pray a God who says he will fight our battles. Vengeance is his, says the Lord." Then he responds by saying, "The problem arises."
Now let's unpack this evidence with security analyst and associate professor in the police practice department at the University of South Africa. That is Professor Dumsani Mabunda. Prof, thank you so much for joining us and welcome to Connecting the Dots.
Good afternoon and good afternoon to the viewers.
Now, Prof, I'm sure you've been keeping up with the evidence before the Madlanga Commission. It seems that General Lebeya has been placed at the top of the command structure in the verification request that was rehashed yet again before the Commission from the vantage point of more Hawks officials, including that of the Gauteng provincial head. What do you make of this evidence? Was it a sincere request that was being made by Lebeya, do you think, or was it allegedly to interfere for the purposes of protecting, allegedly, this alleged cartel member being Katiso Molefe?
Yeah, thank you. Let me start by saying alleged corruption by some SAPS officials revealed so far boggles the mind, to say the least. However, we are also encouraged to learn that there are still good cops out there. And also, we learned that the root of all evil is money, and it has come to reality right now. The question is, how do we salvage the situation? Obviously, we will need reform and political will. We also need to look at how deep this road that we have had so far have gone in a criminal justice system, not only in the police, because this might be a tip of an iceberg. So we are hopeful that the preliminary report that will be released soon by the Madlanga Commission will chart the way forward in terms of reform.
It seems that these units were working separately when they descended on that particular property. Would it not have been easier for these generals or the commands at the higher structure to communicate directly before sending all of these different units down to that particular residence, raising further suspicions about their presence there for longer than an hour?
Yeah, you will note that where there's a carcass, vultures will cycle that area. So maybe the vultures sensed that that area was a focal point for investigation. But we have since learned that it all goes down to corruption, since we have had so much evidence that it was because the address that was given was an address that involves a person who is suspected of nefarious actions. But we are grateful that there was no shootout, because that was a potential for shootout when you find armed forces coming to one place, some of them uninvited so far as we know. But we are grateful that there was no confrontation that led to some serious injuries or even death that could have occurred.
And if we move to the evidence that relates to Sentumule, who did come, and she's the acting Deputy National Commissioner, and she gave us further evidence regarding the movement of those PKTT dockets. You may remember that we heard from General Mutsepe that they were brought there for the purposes of auditing. However, they didn't go further with investigations because they were waiting for funding to that effect. But it seems that the evidence of Sentumule contradicts that and says that they were there for safekeeping, and that this function of auditing actually doesn't happen at head office. It actually takes place in the local stations.
Yeah, you're right. General Sentumule clarified the issue of these dockets. But we are aware that once the powers that be realized that it was a wrong action, there was a quick move to take them back. Unfortunately, the provincial commissioner of KwaZulu-Natal was not willing to accept them. So once the people that requested these dockets in head office realized that it was not supposed to be like that. And they ran around trying to put a task team to try and audit, and which was the first of its kind, because in my experience in the police, I've never heard that at some stage dockets are taken to head office for auditing or inspection. In all provinces, there are powerful structures that deals with the dockets until they are dealt with by the court of law.
And we're also hearing evidence that could possibly give further meaning behind that directive that followed the disbandment announcement about the actual movement of the dockets. Lt-General Hilda Sintumile came to the commission armed with those WhatsApp exchanges between her and Lt-General Shadrack Sibiya, where he allegedly expressed some form of alleged paranoia over counterintelligence led by Kumalo, with the assistance of PKTT investigating him. Could that give possible meaning behind why those dockets went there and seemingly sat there without any movement, and then they were told that they needed to be returned to KZN after that short period that they were there, and no one really knows what exactly took place with those dockets when they moved to Pretoria?
Yeah, it's a good question. The Commissioner for Detectives, that is General Sibiya, suspected that if he doesn't do something, he will end up being investigated. But the question is, how have we come to a situation where law enforcement officers are investigating each other, and sometimes with trumped up charges? So we have seen suspensions that have not resulted in any case, because it later came out that it was a tough war. There's too much competition in the police, as we've heard with other witnesses, that if you are a threat, you have to be eliminated. Trump charges have to be preferred against you, whether there is substance or not. We hope that going forward, this kind of situation will not be allowed to take place, where police, instead of protecting the citizens of this country, they spend so much time in devising means to eliminate other colleagues. I hope it will come to an end.
Indeed. Thank you, Prof. Mabunda. And that is certainly not only what the Madlanga Commission has to do, which is investigate those allegations, but also to come up with some form of redress to resolve the flaws in the policing system and the criminal justice system as a whole. Now, the Commission is expected to sit for more than 1 week, or 1 week, before it begins penning the preliminary report, which will likely highlight, if any, the kind of problems South Africa is facing from the evidence so far. The said report is expected by the President by the 17th of December 2025, and questions remain as to whether implicated persons will feature in this particular portion. Will the Commission hear from the likes of Sibiya, Lebeya, the former City of Ekurhuleni manager, Dr. Morgan Mashazi, and more to do so? Stay tuned to The Probe from 9:30 a.m. on Monday to see who will take the seat, and join us again next week, Sunday, to unpack more of those revelations from the witness box.